Hi there, Lauren Crawford, Yogi Lauren. This is my first in a ongoing series of vlogs, a video blog. I wanted to touch base with you as we move into this new venture of Lauren Crawford Yoga, a digital platform where we can come together and learn and share and grow, and I can support your journey and you can support mine. This has been a very trying time that we've been in for the last few months, and it will continue to be a trying time. This requires a certain capacity for us to move forward. We need to look on and draw upon resources that we have at our disposal. Some of those are our own, and some of those we need from outside, from folks who can provide us with some tools to help us move forward. Isolation is real, and whether you're isolating in a small pod with your family or are you a single isolator like myself, it does wear on us. It does have an eroding effect on our mental well-being. We have to be cognizant of that, and we have to be able to find the tools and the techniques that are going to help us move through that. So what are some of the essentials that we know? Let's start with diet. So our diet needs to be nourishing. It needs to be one that is helping and sustaining us. When we get into situations that are beyond our control, such as a pandemic, we may resort to eating habits that actually aren't that helpful. A lot of snacking, maybe indulging in sort of treats. And this can become a habit very quickly, or maybe it's a habit you've come back to. And that won't necessarily sustain us in the long run. So Ayurvedically, we would say, let's try to find meals that are balancing to our constitution. If you're not really sure what that means, I'd suggest visiting ayurveda.com and look at Dr. Ladd's tools and resources. There's a plethora of resources there. You could do your constitution test. You can look at the food lists that are accommodate your particular constitution, this sort of thing. So eating foods that are aligning with your constitution, first and foremost, that's a great thing. Consider when you're eating. So in these times of working from home and self-isolating, our schedules may get a little bit thrown out of whack. So I'm going to suggest also that you try to eat at regular times. So having breakfast, lunch, and dinner at a regular time every day. Why is this important? Because it maintains a certain intelligence within our being. It knows, the body knows when it's going to be fed if we're feeding it at a regular time. And that will increase the digestive fire. So the digestive fire starts to get ready because it knows it's going to be fed. That creates really good efficiency in digestion and elimination. And then eliminate, frankly, snacking. So don't allow for snacking between the meals. And that also lets the stomach get emptied, lets the digestion start to move through small and large intestines. And that emptying is really essential. So if you feel like, well, I get hungry, I need to nosh on something, think about sipping some water. Oftentimes the body doesn't really discern, is it thirsty or is it hungry? It wants something. So sipping on some warm water, some lemon water would be ideal. Remember, we try to avoid ice water because ice dampens your digestive fire, period, end of story. So food. Think about the second thing I'm going to talk about is sleep patterns. And I know they can be thrown off, especially when emotions are raw and we're not feeling of ourselves. We're feeling out of sorts. Do your best to maintain regulated sleeping pattern. So to bed every night at the same time and up every morning at the same time. I used to be a believer that, there were no such things as night owls, but I read this wonderful book, Why We Sleep. And the sleep scientist who's explored sleep all of his life has determined there are a percentage of us who are night owls. If that's you, if you're one of those 20-ish%, you'll be staying up a little bit later and sleeping a little bit later. For the rest of us, we probably want to be in bed somewhere around 10:30 or 11. And the reason why is because after that time, digestive fire kicks in again like it does at noon hour. So you want to be in bed before that happens. Otherwise, you get that sort of second wind, as we call it, right? And then you'll find it more difficult to get to sleep. And then getting up again sometime around 6:30-ish. Not too late, because if we stay in bed into the 7, 8, 9 hour period, there's a heavier energy, and this is super subtle. But trust me, if you explore it, you'll realize if you can get up even before 6, you'll have a little bit more of that energy to take you into your day. So regulated sleep periods. If you have some sleep disorder, think about oiling the body, because that gives it a grounding effect. It'll warm up some of that dry, light energy of Vata, which keeps us awake. Consider warm baths as well, maybe before bed. And also, what is your sleep routine? Sleep hygiene is the new word. So making sure that you are not connecting online right before bed, that you turn off the screens. If you have screens on, there are glasses you can get now that cut the blue light that comes off the screen, that is really, really wreaks havoc with our circadian rhythms. And so we want to be thinking about sleep and maintaining good sleep, just like diet. The other thing is practice. And you may not have a regular practice, and your practice doesn't have to be yoga postures. Maybe your practice is to go for a walk every morning. Maybe your practice is to get up and make some tea and sit and journal. These are practices, and these are important. I advocate for some physical yoga practice, because it does move the body. It does move energy around. It does help with flexibility, strengthening, stabilizing the physical body, because we want this physical body to be nice and strong. It's the vessel. It's the home of our soul, after all. If that's not your ballywick, if physical practice isn't for you, that's okay. But look on the website, and you'll find lots of tools as well. Become a member, and you'll have access to lots of classes. So doing something physical, do some meditation. There are lots of meditation techniques available. And again, if you're part of the Lauren Crawford yoga platform, you'll have lots of those to draw upon. Even if you don't do the full archive classes, you can skip forward to the end and do the little bit of meditation at the end. Plus, I'll put some very specific meditations there on the platform for you. So meditating is important, because we want the mind to be relieved of its busyness, relieved of its dispersing kind of scattered energies. We want to be able to get the mind under our control. And how do we do that? You can't flick a switch. So the way in, ideally, is a little bit of the physical practice, then some breath work, and then sitting in meditation. And meditation can look like a lot of things, but the simplest is always to start with just a breath meditation. So I'm pointing to my nose. So closing your eyes, and then being alert to the breath moving in and out of the nostrils. And sit in absolute stillness and just rest in that. The mind will want to wander off, you pull it back. Super, super simple. You do that for 1, 2, 3 minutes initially over a period of time. That's creating the foundation for a simple meditation practice. So something physical in your body. If it's not yoga asana poses, then doing some walking, doing your exercise regime, finding some time for the breath, and then some time for meditation. These are essential parts of this dealing with this pandemic. I also want you to think about creativity. So number 4, how are you being creative? What are you doing in your life right now in time of isolation to stir up some of those creative juices? When we get into our creativity, we feel a lot more alive. So creativity can look like a lot of things. It could be writing a poem. It could be doing some journaling. That's creative. That's letting energies and thoughts move, right? It could be baking. So baking a cake, doing something like that. If you have a family, doing some baking that way. It could be cooking. So cooking some meals for yourself, and maybe if you have the capacity to cook some meals for others. It can be doing some art. Maybe there was an art expression that you used to enjoy that you've left a while ago. Maybe it's simply reading a book, taking time out of the routine of your life to sit and do some reading. There's so many ways to explore creativity. And I'm going to encourage you to make that one of the foundations as well. And then lastly, so let's call this a list of 6. Last of the list is self-care. So aside from practice, which is an element of self-care, what are you doing specifically for yourself during this pandemic, especially if you have kids at home or you're tending to others, even pets for that matter? How are you giving yourself a break? What is it that you're doing in there that's very specifically a gift to yourself? And so maybe that's, again, on the yoga side, maybe that's doing yoga nidra 3 times a week, at a special time, maybe a Wednesday evening at 8, for example. Maybe you're taking time to join one of my live classes and have a sense of plugging in that way. Maybe it is about doing some practice or course online that is something outside of your norm, that's giving you some insight, some connection to yourself in a way that maybe you haven't been doing of late. It is imperative that you look after yourself, especially if you have responsibilities for others, that you build into your week at least a few times a week your self-care time. And maybe that's as simple as going into the bathroom and, drawing a bath and putting in some soothing salts and soaking for 20 or 30 minutes just on your own, some soothing music in the background, candlelight, really doing some of that self-love, self-care. It's so important at this time. So those are just some of my thoughts, and I wanted to share those with you. And if you have any questions, observations, comments, if you want some input on practice, I look forward to hearing from you. Be well, take care of yourself, and take care of each other. We need to necessarily come through this together. This is not, if this pandemic has taught us anything, it's about, even in isolation, we have to recognize it's a collective healing. It's a collective response that has to occur. So we're in it together, as it's become the cliche, but it's true. And my heart is with you, and I know your heart is with me. Be well.